An extract from Prehistoric Giants, the Megafauna of Australia, by Danielle Clode. Step back in time. Yellow eyes glinted in the semi-darkness of the early dawn. The Thylacoleo sniffed the air, impatiently, hoping for a scent of her quarry. From her vantage point on the low gum branch, she could see nothing. Her short nose crinkled, her lips drew back over long white incisors as she drew in the crisp air. Catching no scent, she dropped to the ground and loped swiftly along the path of prints she'd been following for hours. The Diprotodon was moving more slowly now. Perhaps it was old or sick. She quickened her pace. The Thylacoleo's two tiny young squirmed against the emptiness of her stomach. Soon they would be too large for the safety of her pouch, and they would emerge, miniature copies of herself, fiercely protesting at their expulsion. Soon she would have to leave them in her den just a few kilometres away, hidden beneath a fallen forest giant in the cool of the mountain ash. For now they stayed locked to her nipples, steadily drawing sustenance from her body as they grew. Her stomach growled. The scent grew stronger now. The Diprotodon had moved clumsily, breaking branches and leaving a wide clear trail as it went. The grass was wet with morning dew as the Thylacoleo slid past, her sinuous yet sturdy body glistening and damp, her toes scarcely leaving an imprint behind her. With a quick shake, she fluffed out her fur, barely pausing her steady advance. Small birds began their lyrical morning chorus in the cool air. The eastern horizon brightened with pink and gold streaked clouds. She would have to hurry. Time was running out. Suddenly the Thylacoleo broke clear of the low shrub, onto a rise. Instinctively she dropped to the ground, her eyes fixed on the scene ahead. Only her nose and ears moved, catching the slightest odour, the faintest sound of her prey below. She backed away from the edge into the cover of the bushes. Creeping beneath the gnarled gum overhanging the edge of the bank, she leapt up onto its branches until she gained a clear, yet secluded view of the scene below. The Diprotodon had stopped by the edge of a wide, shallow lake, its path blocked by increasingly treacherous ground. A low grumble escaped its huge body as it swayed its head from side to side, confused and uncertain which way to go. It was alone, unusual for a Diprotodon not yet fully grown. As it finally fixed its path to travel west around the swamp, the Diprotodon tripped, stumbling under its own vast weight. The Thylacoleo's ears twitched. The Diprotodon was lame. Slowly she picked her way through the shrubs above the lumbering beast. The slope to the lake was wide and exposed here, too far for her to run across undetected. Even a lame and solitary Diprotodon was dangerous. She would rather take it by surprise. Further ahead the slope steepened and the swamp extended a long finger into the path of the Diprotodon. The path around the swamp was narrow. The Diprotodon would have to walk right beneath the vegetation overhanging the ridge above. That was her ambush point. Dropping back to the ground, she kept her eyes fixed upon her prey and crept along the hill crest in an ever-narrowing trajectory with the unwitting Diprotodon. The Diprotodon lumbered on. It was confused by the swamp, which lay between it and the safety of the forest it could smell beyond. Its leg hurt. The Diprotodon grumbled disconsolately to itself. Unaware of the yellow eyes following its progress, the Diprotodon thought only of the cool green canopy which would shade it from the heat of the sun, and the aromatic leaves it could snack on. Encouraged by the prospect, the Diprotodon hurried around the last long finger of swamp that stood in its way. The Thylacoleo quickened her pace too. Just as the Thylacoleo reached the promontory overlooking the swamp, the Diprotodon stumbled again, its great weight sliding into the swampy pool. Now was her chance. Without hesitation, the Thylacoleo leapt onto the great beast's back, clamping her paws around its neck, diving her long clawed thumb into its thick hide. The Diprotodon bellowed in terror, raising its head to dislodge its attacker, but this was just what the Thylacoleo was waiting for. Swiftly she struck at the soft exposed throat, locking her powerful jaws around the throbbing arteries and windpipe, crushing them closed. The great bellows of the wounded beast rattled and hissed as the Diprotodon thrashed in the mud. Throwing its weight to one side, it tried to roll onto the Thylacoleo, but she twisted out of the way, never loosening her vice-like grip on the Diprotodon's throat. The black mud of the swamp clung to the Diprotodon's flailing legs, sucking it deeper into the ooze. A gobbet of sludge flicked up into the Thylacoleo's eye, but she didn't flinch, hanging grimly on, one eye closed, as the thrashing of the huge body beneath slowed and weakened. Slowly, slowly, the body stilled, until, with a last sudden spasm of its legs, the great beast lay silent. Still the Thylacoleo didn't release her prey. Sitting silently, unmoving, with her teeth bared and ears back, only her remaining open eye flicked back and forth across the landscape, always scanning for danger. After all the noise and struggle, the swamp fell strangely silent. In the distance, the small birds began their song again as the sun rose, sending its first golden tendrils out across the landscape. After an age, the Thylacoleo shifted her weight, finding a more comfortable place to sit. Her teeth still firmly embedded in the Diprotodon's throat, she retracted her claws and delicately unjagged her long thumb hook. Raising her paw, she awkwardly smeared the mud from her eye. Sensing no danger, she released her grip, but quickly took a further bite, growling softly to herself as she moved. Twisting herself around, she scrambled off the body, breathing in its warm, moist scent of crushed eucalyptus. Sure now that her prey was dead, she let go, looking all around her, nervously, anxiously. Just as she was about to sink her great slashing incisors into the warm flesh of her meal, her hackles rose and a soft hiss behind her confirmed her worst fears. She spun around to face the megalania that had woken in the nearby shrubs. The reptile's long tongue flickered across its lips, tasting the scent of the fresh kill. The Thylacoleo shrieked a futile warning. The huge old goanna casually raised its head, barely offering a threat in retaliation. The Thylacoleo had no choice. Megalania towered over her, and she was no match for such a large competitor, even a cold and sluggish one like this. Yippering in frustration, she slipped back around the swamp, Thylacoleo abandoning her prey to the great reptile. Glancing back, she saw the goanna rest its huge head on the Diprotodon, allowing the sun's rays to warm its cold blood before it began to feast. The Thylacoleo wasted no time heading back towards the safety of her den. When the giant lizards warmed up, the open country was no place for any mammal to be, even a large carnivore like Thylacoleo. The sun was heating the air rapidly, drying off the long grass and releasing their sweet scent. As she passed, the Thylacoleo startled a mob of short-faced kangaroos, sending the smaller females and young crashing into the forest. The large male stretched himself up to his full height, watching the Thylacoleo carefully. Aggressively he scraped his claws across his broad chest, as if daring Thylacoleo to attack him. But she was not interested. She thought only of her cool den now. As she hurried on, a strange, acrid scent caught her attention. She leapt into the nearest tree, clambering nimbly up to the topmost branches. The smoke was coming from the east. Not from the conical mountains that periodically belched fumes, but from the wide, flat plains at their base. Peering into the bright light, Thylacoleo sensed that this was not a forest fire. This was not the roaring beast that swallowed up whole forests, consuming all in its path. This was not the monster that even Megalania feared. Not yet, anyway. A thin tendril of smoke wound its way up into the pale sky. A campfire. Humans. She would remember to avoid that side of her territory tonight. The Thylacolea yawned, her jaws drawing wide and her tongue curling back. She dropped to the ground and headed into the cool of the forest and the safety of her den. Neither fire nor humans nor reptiles would disturb her there. Deep in the cool damp earth she could rest until night fell again and she could return to her hunt.